In Britain, we drop 30 million tonnes of litter a year, and then we spend £1 billion a year cleaning it up. It makes no sense.
I don't drop litter, and I don't understand people who do.
It's crazy. We use our streets as dumping grounds, turn our countryside into a tip, and then expect other people to clean up after us.
I'm sick and tired of wading through other people's rubbish.
Littering is a complex social problem, and you'll be shocked by some of the things you'll see. But there are some simple new ideas that can help, and what's more, we can all do our bit.
I'm going to pick up one piece of litter every day this week and put it in the bin. Now, you might think that isn't going to make much of a difference, but if everyone watching does the same, we'll each be giving a message to the people who do litter this country. Don't mess with me.
This is hardcore littering. Fly tipping. Dishonest people who know they're breaking the law. Dumping rubbish in the dead of night, when they think they can't be seen. In broad daylight, on an industrial estate in Cheshire, 2 men roll up. A quick check that it's a good spot, and they start tipping. The driver seems to be looking for something. Could it be CCTV cameras? They work quickly, dumping wheelie bin after wheelie bin. And then, as a parting shot, the passenger chucks something out of the window. It's just after midnight in Hackney, London, and CCTV cameras have been tracking a tipper truck filled with building waste. It's been driving round the streets. At 12:20, they stop for a smoke, giving the cameras a good look at the truck, and they turn on the cab light, revealing who they are. No offence has been committed, but CCTV keeps following them. The truck is finally spotted through some steel gates. This time it's tipped up while driving along the road. And this is the shocking result. A huge pile of rubbish blocking the road, dumped with no thought for the problems it will cause anyone else. If a man with a van offers to get rid of some waste for you, ask to see his trade waste agreement. If he hasn't got one, your stuff could be dumped illegally like this, and you could be fined. On Britain's roads, CCTV cameras catch 26 million images every day. But there are still plenty of places where illegal fly tippers do their work without being caught on camera. There's been a tip-off about a massive fly tip on some public land near Wellingborough, Northamptonshire.
So we're just coming on to the first part of the Clay Lane site, and we've got quite a bit of waste.
It's a shocking scene of devastation. Pile upon pile of rubbish dumped illegally under cover of darkness. A beauty spot, loved by walkers, has been vandalised. Criminals have tipped their rubbish here to avoid paying to have it properly disposed of.
Just going to get some gloves as well.
Sadly, this is just an ordinary day's work for this council officer. He's here to find evidence to link the rubbish to the vandals that dumped it.
So hopefully we might be able to pick up some documentation that might link to where it might have come from.
It's not long before he finds something.
So I just picked up a letter out of the water tray there. An address here for address in Wellingborough. So that's a result.
The address might not belong to the person who dumped the waste, but it's a start.
I'm just going to take a photo.
The photograph will prove the letter was part of the fly tip if the offender is found and the case goes to court.
So often when we come across what looks like to be soiled nappies there, we find in bags of presumably household waste. Probably perhaps find some additional food items with maggots or something as well. Some things actually end up making you feel a bit sick when you come across it, but it's just a case of holding your nose and getting in there and getting what you need to get.
This disgusting household waste should have been taken to a council dump. Amongst the stinking pile, he finds an address. Further along, there's some building rubbish, dumped by a business that didn't want to pay for its disposal.
It's a big problem because if there are no leads to follow up on, it goes unpunished.
Also going unpunished is the next fly-tipping builder. There's no evidence here either. And, shockingly, Steve's only scratched the surface of this horrendous scene.
We're just coming up to the end of the track here, and already you can see where there's quite a bit of fly tipping's been dumped.
The end of the lane is even worse, with tip after tip, and no more clues. Steve has ordered his crew to clear the fly tip. They're on their way with a tractor to move the rubbish at the council's expense. That means at taxpayers' expense. Later, Steve will be on the trail of the vandals who dumped the stuff he's uncovered this morning. Litter in this country has now reached a point where we can't manage without an army of people chasing after litterers and cleaning up after us 24 hours a day.
But it's also true that we couldn't manage without the people who do it voluntarily.
A lot of the stuff we throw away could be reused, but if it's discarded as litter, people don't usually go to the effort of retrieving and recycling it. However, in Leicester, there's a man who does just that.
My name is Adrian. I'm also known as the Can Man.
When Adrian Ablett lost his job as a sales advisor, he started picking up cans from the street. It made him feel useful and he enjoyed it. Soon he'd collected thousands. The local press dubbed him Can Man, and it stuck.
I just adopted the name really, I just thought it was quite appropriate.
For Adrian, collecting discarded cans has become a way of life.
Nearly 4 completed years now. Every day I still love going out and doing it as much as I did the first day I ever started.
Adrian doesn't pick up all sorts of litter, only cans.
There is a lot down here, there always is down here. It's a popular route in and out of town when they're staggering home after having a few cans. It's a quiet way back. Because there's no bins down here, they chuck it into the bushes because they think that it's not going to be seen, but I see it.
He started in 2010 on foot with a wheelie bin. Then a local bike repair shop donated a bike and a trailer.
You find some random things. I love my meow meow.
And now the council has funded an electric trike.
That will hold about 500 cans thereabouts. So it means that I can stay out for about 2-3 hours, fill it up, go back, and then go out again. And when I get really tired, then I've got the electric to be able to assist me, because my legs are getting a bit old now.
Adrian's passion is unusual, but behind it all is his loathing of litter.
It's common knowledge to me that you don't drop litter. You come out for a day out, you don't bring your litter, you buy it while you're out, so take it back. You come in a car, take the rubbish back with you, don't just leave it. It's very, it is very annoying.
Adrian doesn't confront litterers. It's not worth the risk. He just clears up after them. And today, Can Man's can-do attitude has again netted him hundreds of cans.
It's been quite a successful little outing here. I've filled quite a few cans in what is a relatively short space of time. I'm off home now to get these emptied and to go and have a cup of tea.
Can Man HQ is this garage near where Adrian lives. Here, he estimates how to turn his haul into cash. For the cans to be worth something, he has to know how many he's collected.
The bin holds about 50 at a time, and then each time I get to 50, I put them into the bag, do that twice, and then each of those bags has got 100 cans in each one.
Every can that was carelessly dumped or deliberately discarded by a thoughtless litter lout has to be counted and bagged.
49. And one more makes 50. Getting the bag open and emptying all those cans. I get 1 pence each for the cans, so that's aluminium or steel. If you're doing it for the money, there's not an awful lot in it. You know, it's a lot of effort. You know, 35 hours of my time for probably about 2,000 cans. So that's £20 for 35 hours of work.
It's extraordinary that Adrian bothers, but he doesn't just do it for the money. He enjoys cleaning up his city, and he has a target in mind.
So far this year, I've managed to do just under 35,000 cans, which is a mixture between aluminium and steel. Overall, 142,000 I've done since I started almost 4 years ago. I would like to get somewhere in the region of about 250,000. 250,000 sounds amazing.
And he's likely to achieve it. Adrian now gets so many cans, the recycling van comes to him.
Every week on a Friday, the Leicester City Council come round and collect the cans from me. This week there'll be probably around about 1,500 cans that are going to go off. It looks like I had a wild party or something the night before.
Afternoon, Adrian.
Hello, Luke.
How
are you?
You all right?
Nice to
not
see
bad.
you.
And you?
You come for another batch?
Excellent. How many have you got for us today?
I think I've got 7 for you altogether today.
Okay, brilliant.
All freshly drained.
Let's load up. I think Adrian is fairly unique in Leicester. He does a great job. He's collected thousands and thousands of cans over the years, and as a council, we're pleased to be supporting the work that Adrian does.
It's certainly a good bargain for the people of Leicester. Their litter collected from inaccessible places at virtually no cost to themselves.
That should help a little bit, shouldn't it, Audrey?
It will do.
Excellent.
In 4 years, Adrian has collected 140,000 cans that once littered Leicester. But he's never seen that amount of cans altogether in one place. Until now.
Okay, Adrian, this is our materials recycling facility.
This giant recycling plant can handle 26 tonnes of waste an hour. Cans from all over the country are brought here, and cans are big business. You can make an aluminium can from ore dug from the ground, but it's much cheaper and uses a lot less energy to make it from an old can. Every can made from recycled cans saves enough energy to run your TV for 3 hours. As well as nicely separated cans like Adrian's, this place accepts mixed waste. So the first job is to separate out the cans using magnets.
So how many cans would that get through in a day?
You're probably talking around in the area of 100,000 cans a day that this will separate out.
The cans end up in a bunker, and when that's opened, Adrian gets his first chance to see in one place what he's done.
And as you can see below, the storage bucket door is being emptied and the aluminium cans put onto the belt below.
Well, that is a lot of cans.
Yeah, you're probably looking at 30,000 cans.
30,000 cans. That is a lot of drinking that's going on there.
It is a lot of drinking that's been done.
And it's a lot of littering too. And just a little bit less than the number of cans Adrian's collected over the past 6 months.
I've never seen the cans in one big lump like that.
We'll go and see the final process where it comes out as its final bale. Squashed.
Every time a careless drinker chucks a can onto the ground or into a hedge, not only are they creating unsightly litter, they're costing us all money because the can isn't recycled. Drinks cans made from recycled ones are much cheaper, and the process is quick and simple.
That can be back on the shelf in 6 weeks, someone buying it again, and then the whole process starts all over again. Yeah.
Out in the yard, it's time for a reckoning. Each of the square bales holds 30,000 cans.
Last year I did 50,000 cans, so one of these is, just under what I've done in a whole year. But this year I've just about produced one of those myself.
So how many do you think you've collected in, what you've been doing there?
Well, in the 4 years that I've been doing what I do, I will have actually managed to fill 5 of these. So
that's pretty good then, really.
It's amazing to see how many I've actually, saved from going to landfill and from getting back into the recycling system.
The stacked up cans are a monument to Adrian's achievement, but he shouldn't have had to do all this in the first place. At least 140,000 times the drinkers of Leicester couldn't be bothered to pop their can into a bin, and that suggests Adrian's mission is far from over.
I find litter really irritating, and the people who drop it are even more irritating. It's irresponsible, it's antisocial. Yet we don't seem to have found an effective way of stopping it. But maybe persuading people to use a litter bin is actually easier than you think.
We've all seen it. Litter on the road or the pavement, and a perfectly good litter bin nearby. What would it take to get people to use the bins? According to an experiment run in Wales, all it would take are some green footprints. This is Hay-on-Wye in the Welsh countryside, an intellectual sort of town. Hay is famous for its bookshops and its annual literary festival. But the town doesn't want to be famous for its litter.
We need the tourists. Tourists are not going to come to a place where there is litter, so it pays everyone to try and keep it tidy.
But the usual anti-litter techniques weren't right for Hay's bookish tourists.
In a small town like this, there's a very, very fine balance with people not coming back. You want to encourage people to come back into your town, so enforcement is not going to make them feel that this is a place they want to come to.
Psychologist Kerry Davis originally came from Hay, and he wanted to use his hometown to test a new approach to preventing litter. It's a technique called nudging.
Nudge is very much at the lower level of awareness, so it's something approaching the subconscious, so you just see it and your intuition takes it forward.
Rather than putting up warning signs or punishing people, a nudge is a barely noticeable suggestion. If you want people to use litter bins, just put green footprints leading to them.
I'm adding a nudge here, which makes the presence of the litter bin a little bit more obvious, and will hopefully encourage more people to use the bin rather than just walk past and put litter on the floor. This is based on a piece of research and an experiment previously undertaken by a university in Copenhagen, where they found, using a different experiment, but they got about a 40% reduction in litter in the centre of Copenhagen, and it's now been fully endorsed by the city, and it's a permanent feature in the city.
According to the nudge theory, no explanation is needed. The footprints alone will work.
There's nothing else external to show what you're supposed to do. All it is to be a subconscious stimulus to remind people where the bin is.
It seems too simple. Could it really work in Hay? Kerry asked the mayor for permission to run a properly controlled experiment.
To be honest, I wasn't sure. I really didn't know. I thought, is this just a gimmick? Will people not notice it?
The mayor wasn't the only one doubting the technique would work on the Hay bookworms.
Prior to the experiment, I wasn't really sure what the outcomes were going to be. While I had the evidence from Denmark and the 40% reduction there, it's a very different location to Hay.
For the first part of the experiment, he measured and recorded the normal amount of litter in Hay-on-Wye.
So, for example, from this bin, it would have been a 5-metre radius around this bin, counting every piece of litter, what type it was, recording that.
Hay agreed to a whole town experiment, so he surveyed 36 litter bins every week at the same time. This gave him a litter baseline. Then it was time to add his little green footprints.
Okay, what I'm doing now is putting down some stencils ready to spray the green footprints to this particular bin. Again, try and make it more visible as people are passing, encourage them to utilise the bin.
But will something as basic and simple as little green footprints solve haze litter problems?
I enjoy walking in the countryside, but it's very depressing when you find rubbish in even the most remote places.
Anstey's Cove, Devon. The helmets and life jackets are necessary protection on this mission to find and retrieve inaccessible litter from one of our most rugged bits of coastline. It's an extreme litter pick, and that means scrambling, kayaking and jumping. Leading the team of volunteers is professional coasteering instructor Charlie Chambers.
We're going to be making our way over the rocks and the boulders, so the general rule is if it looks slippery or if it's green, then it is slippery.
Coasteering is an extreme sport. It's a way of getting to bits of the coast that are unreachable by road or foot.
If you guys want to follow us, we'll head over this way.
A litter reaches the most remote places.
As a young person that used the beaches a lot, kind of went swimming and kind of clambering around the cliffs, that you kind of thought, hang on a minute, there's a lot of junk here, there's a lot of rubbish here.
Charlie realised that since no one else could reach the litter, it was up to the coasteers to clear it up.
We've got some bin bags in here,
I've got a bin
and
bag.
we'll leave that there, to collect later, So if we'll head off this way if you guys want to follow us, I guess.
The lead team heads off to start climbing. The litter they collect will be retrieved later by a second team in kayaks. It's not long before they find rubbish.
It's a tyre.
The tyre's wedged between the boulders and it's there to stay.
That's not coming out. Totally stuck.
Some litter was blown by the wind, some carried by the sea.
Nice bottle there.
There's industrial waste, domestic rubbish, and stuff from those who depend on the sea for their living.
There's a bit of fishing net actually there, just behind you. That's not coming out. Quite difficult to get out.
Working with the team today is someone with an interest in the effect of litter on marine ecosystems.
We reckon that about 40% of the litter that we're finding on our beaches is coming from the general public. That's either dropped directly on the beach or dropped inland and then swept and blown onto our beaches.
Sue has witnessed the effect of litter on marine creatures.
What I've got here, it's hard to believe, but it's actually a gannet's nest. It's a bird that nests around Pembrokeshire. Every year the RSPB have to go to the island and cut free birds that have been entangled in their nests. And the main reason is that obviously this is so much litter floating out in the oceans that instead of taking natural objects, they're now using plastic to make their nests. The young get entangled in them, and once the parents leave, those young are going to die of starvation unless they're cut free. One of the unfortunate creatures that we cut free, this kind of twine was wrapped so tightly around its leg that when I cut the twine off, its leg fell off as well, because the blood supply had been cut off from its leg. It was still alive, so we let it go, so we're hoping that somewhere in the world there's a one-footed gannet still flying around.
A horrible story, but not surprising. On the rocks, more and more litter is coming to light. It only took a second to drop.
Look at that.
Now it's costing the coasteering team a huge effort and some personal risk to clean up. If it's not collected, the cliffs will become dirtier and litter will blow back into the sea to pollute some other beach. The first bay has been done. The second can't be reached by foot, leaving the coasteers with just one option. As the coasteers swim towards their final litter location, the kayak team is heading further round towards the end of the bay. Long Quarry Point is a favourite with campers and fishermen, and it seems that inevitably means litter.
So what kind of stuff have you found, guys? People obviously come to this sort of area because it's a nice place to come. Unfortunately, they're a little bit short-sighted and they don't see that to maintain that they have to take their litter away with them as well.
The point is now regularly litter picked, but even so, there's a substantial haul.
We have 1, 2, 3 and 4. It's a fairly small area, so that's quite a lot of litter for a small area.
On the way home, the kayaks pick up bags left by the coasteering team. With 8 bags of litter and some larger items collected, Anstey's Cove is a lot cleaner than at the start of the day. But before their well-earned cup of tea, there's one more job.
We're about to survey the rubbish, and that's really important so we can find out where that rubbish is coming from. If we know where that rubbish is coming from, we can try and target that source, and hopefully next time we come out and do a clean, we'll see less of that particular type of rubbish.
Sue's survey makes the coasteers realise that as well as looking hideous now, litter will cause problems for years to come.
Plastic drinks bottles, these are the type of things, we find hundreds of these actually on beach cleans, and they will eventually break down into much smaller pieces, and then they're very easily eaten by all sorts of animals in the ocean.
If the people who carelessly dropped this litter knew what would happen to it, would they treat it more carefully? Aluminium drinks cans will be around for generations.
It takes a long time to break down, maybe about 400 years in the marine environment, and as it's breaking down it turns into lots of little sharp pieces, which is pretty nasty to step on, and again these can be eaten by animals.
The wind and waves smash some litter down, causing new problems.
You can just really see how easily it breaks. It takes no force at all just to break it up into tiny pieces. And again, it's something that animals eat very easily. Like all the plastics, it's completely indigestible.
This minke whale was found dead on a beach in Normandy. When it was examined, its stomach was full of plastic.
Unfortunately, it's not actually surprising that we found that much rubbish. You kind of look out over the rocks, it looks very clean and sort of pristine, but I guess it's like with most places, you sort of scratch beneath the surface and you start looking and you start finding, and then you find more and more and more.
Until the message about litter gets through, it will continue to build up in even the remotest parts of our supposedly green and pleasant land. A single piece of litter means nothing to the thoughtless person who dropped it. But if it gets into the wrong place, it can have really serious consequences.
We've all heard about leaves on the line, but did you know that a single crisp packet can stop a train in its tracks?
When your train's delayed because the points have failed, it might be because some thoughtless passenger has thrown litter on the line. Clearing litter from tracks is a routine part of running an efficient train service. Here at Birmingham New Street, they send a team out every night.
We have litter picking teams in Birmingham New Street all the time. It's a everyday job. It's frustrating that we have to every night send people down here working in this environment, picking up stuff. Very frustrating.
Walking on the tracks at night is also potentially dangerous, so they take special precautions. If a train did get onto the closed track, these 3 explosives would be set off by its wheels.
They make a really loud bang if a train goes over them. Belt and braces stuff, but it does the job.
They have just 4 hours to find out if there is litter on the points and remove it.
At the moment, we're looking for the points.
The points are where trains are switched from one track to another. Litter can stop them working, bring the railway to a halt, and cause delays for all of us.
A bit in the points here. I don't know what it is. It looks like orange peel, actually. Yeah. What it does, it gets between it and the points don't fit up. But if they don't fit up properly, you don't get detection in the signal box.
A larger piece of litter, like a bottle or drinks can get stuck in the points. But even something as small as a crisp packet can block the sensor. So operators have to close the tracks and investigate.
That's why the litter picking every night is important.
Which of course means trains are delayed. But sometimes rubbish dumped on or near tracks doesn't just cause delays, it can be life-threatening. It's 1 a.m. on the outskirts of Birmingham.
We've had a report about some fly tipping being dumped on the top of the embankment on the railway in Birmingham.
Some idiot has dumped rubbish over this wall. Several tons of builder's waste. Once again, it's a case of a selfish vandal trying to avoid paying for proper waste removal. But this time, their criminal act is potentially lethal. The massive tip is balancing on a steep embankment directly over the railway line out of Birmingham New Street. If the pile of rubbish becomes unstable, the heavy waste could tumble onto the tracks below and cause an accident. Emergency action is needed. At Birmingham New Street, they're closing the line.
We've got the line blocked for about 7.5 hours.
Because it's behind a high wall, access to the site is difficult, and working on the steep slope, too dangerous. So they've called in the heavy lifting gear. The truck carries 2 big skips. Its grab should be able to reach over the wall to pull up the waste, keeping the men out of danger.
At the top there, the very top of the bank, that's where the fly tipping is. The track is about 30 foot down there over this wall. So you can imagine if it was to get any worse, that pile, it'd all start falling down the embankment and towards the track. It could have stopped the trains running, or even worse, it could have hit a train. But we've got to it just in time, I think.
As the clear-up begins, it's hard to believe someone was prepared to risk lives like this. But it's not an unusual event. Network Rail spends £2.3 million a year clearing rubbish and has well-worked routines.
In order to work in this area, because the trains are electric, we have to isolate the power supply. That makes it safer for our staff, and also makes it safer if we have when we have machines and that sort of stuff on the actual railway.
Finally, by about 3:30 a.m, the tip is cleared from the embankment, and the risk of it endangering trains is over. But the job isn't finished. The waste has to be made safe on the truck.
There could be needles in there, there could be chemicals and that sort of stuff. So this is why we have to cover everything up, because it's to transport it to our waste collection area. We have to cover it up because it's classed as contaminated waste, which also adds more cost because we have to pay more for contaminated waste.
The rubbish not only endangered lives and closed the railway line, but the cost of clearing it will ultimately be paid by us, the ticket-buying public. Usually, fly tips like this are searched for evidence which could lead to the offenders. But because the site was so dangerous, that won't be happening this time, which means the mindless criminals who dumped it will get off scot-free.
Well, it's unfortunate really, because whoever's dumped it there needs, a bit of justice, I think.
I'm sure we all agree with that. In Hay-on-Wye in the Welsh borders, the litter experiment is up and running. Based on research by Copenhagen University, it's intended gently to nudge people into putting their litter in bins. It worked in Denmark, but would it work here? First, psychologist Kerry Davis surveyed the town's 36 litter bins to see how much litter was on the ground rather than in the bin. Then he put some green footprints leading to the bins to encourage people to put their litter where it should be. It's an unbelievably simple idea, but Kerry is hoping it will go some way to reducing litter in the town he loves.
I don't understand it. I really don't understand why people leave what is their mess rather than just taking it home. If you've got a bin, use it. If you haven't, you should be taking it home.
Kerry surveyed the footprinted bins for 4 weeks. The results were extraordinary. Amazingly, something as simple as little green footprints made a big difference.
This is one of the worst bins in Hay, but with the application of the footprints, it saw a substantial improvement in the litter that was left around it.
The footprints had the same effect across town. This bin went from 20 items of litter on the ground before to 3 or fewer after the footprints.
So the sum total of the results in Hay were that I found a 65% reduction in litter around the bins that were studied in total for the whole town.
It's a small experiment, but a 65% reduction is very impressive. The result exceeded Kerry's expectations, and the people in Hay think it could be the answer for their town.
I think the approach of Hay of using a carrot rather than a stick has actually paid off.
Kerry has proved in a small way that nudging works, and this could have bigger repercussions.
I think what this shows is that, the silent majority who will, utilise a bin if it's available, just need that little bit of a nudge, as it were, to make sure that they do utilise that bin.
The success of experiments like Kerry's green footprints means we're going to hear a lot more about nudge theory. The British government has its own nudge unit called the Behavioural Insights Team. And if you can make people change behaviour by nudges they hardly notice, and it's cheap, you can see why they're interested.
Magda, could you explain nudge theory to me?
Okay, so nudge is a way of helping people to make better decisions for themselves and for the greater good. People generally don't like being told what to do. They like to feel as if they are in control and they're making decisions themselves. And so the elegance of nudge is to try and guide people into the right way of behaving in a subtle kind of way.
So they think they've decided to do the right thing.
Exactly. So, for instance, the littering example, the green feet are a way of putting the litter in the bin an attractive thing to do. So it encourages people by making it more fun to actually tread on the green feet and walk towards the bin. So this is a way of almost tricking people into doing the right thing.
In Wellingborough, massive piles of domestic and commercial rubbish have been dumped on public land by ruthless fly tippers. The piles have been investigated for evidence leading to the criminals, and now they're about to be cleared away. There's far too much to load manually, so the tractor's been called in. The amount is shocking, and so is how quickly it appeared here in the first place.
About 2 months ago we were here and we cleared it of everything. It was nice and spotless, and we're back to the same again. It'll be cleared again, and they'll do the same thing again in a couple of months. It's wrong. It is wrong, and I wish there was ways that they could be caught.
Catching the litter criminals is what Council Officer Steve Dunkley has in mind. This morning he found 2 addresses on the tips, and he's hoping one will help him track down the person responsible for the disgusting pile of domestic waste and lead to a prosecution.
I'm going to go there and give a door knock and ask a few questions, see if they know anything about why the rubbish was on Clay Lane.
It's a residential address. It's possible the homeowner paid an unlicensed waste disposal firm to remove the rubbish.
Often, say, from residential premises, they've often paid somebody to go and take the waste away, and they're more than happy to offer up details of the person they give it to.
But long experience makes Steve doubtful of a positive lead here.
Problem comes is that person who's sometimes often just come round and said, oh, well, pay me 50 quid and I'll clear up any rubbish that you've got, and they don't necessarily know who they are or got any contact details from them.
Back at the fly tip, the clearance is picking up pace.
I like them on wheels, they're easy. It's deceiving, once you start dragging it out the hedgerows, etc., there's a lot. So we'll be back for a second load, I should think. Well, we'll get rid of this pile of mud here, then we'll move on to the sofas and the other pile there, and we have some more in the hedgerow just there and a sofa over there, and then that's this part of this area clear.
Steve's at the address he found at the fly tip, but there's no reply.
I've rang on the doorbell to see if anyone's in, no answer after a few calls. I've left a calling card so that they can give us a call back.
He tries a neighbour's door.
Hey, you alright? I'm Steve Duncan from Wellingborough North.
But there's no information to be gleaned here either.
Obviously from the Eastern European sort of background, it was quite common in this area, so difficult in understanding English, and didn't really have anything to say on the next door and that. To be honest, I think they probably didn't want to have to say anything.
But Steve doesn't want to leave any stone unturned.
There's a back alley that services these properties, and I just wanted to go around and have a look to see if there's any evidence to link to any clearance. What we're actually looking at is this particular property. Rubbish items and garden waste. They can just see through the gap there.
But there are no real clues here. Disappointed, Steve calls at a shop nearby to find out who lives in the house.
Do you know any sort of time when they might be around to catch hold of them?
I've never really paid attention, if I'll be honest.
And no conclusive information here either.
I'm going to go back to the office and get the photos up on the computer screen.
So there's no result today. Back in the office, Steve will follow up the evidence he found this morning and hopes the people at the address will eventually get back to him with some more information. But it's a long shot, and it may be that the criminals who dumped the waste get away with it. A frustrating conclusion for everyone.
Ultimately, the people who end up having to pay for all the investigations and clear-ups that we have to undertake for fly tipping is the general public, it's the taxpayers.
As always. But at least back at the fly tip, the rubbish has been cleared. Until the next time some unscrupulous litter lout decides to dump something. We have found ways of winning small battles against the litter louts who are ruining our beautiful country. But we do have a bigger social problem on our hands. Unless people stop treating our streets and countryside with such a lack of care, contempt even, little is going to change. In the meantime, we all owe massive thanks to everyone fighting the war against litter. So let's show our support in a practical way. I'm going to make a promise. I'm going to pick up one piece of litter every day this week and put it in the bin. And if you do the same, and let's assume there are 1.5 million people watching, that'll be 7.5 million pieces of litter binned while this series is on. So join me, and let's each give a message to those people who do litter this country. Don't mess with me.